What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of our NFL season preview. Today we're doing the Baltimore Ravens, and this is going to be my favorite episode to do, being that the Ravens are my team that I cheer for year in and year out. Got the Ravens shirt on, I got a lot of Ravens gear, so this is one that I really wanted to spend time on, and we'll get straight into it. If you've seen any of the other episodes, we go through the offseason acquisitions, their departures, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and what we can expect for this team based on their schedule and what roster that they have. If you like what I'm doing, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and we'll run right through this. I highlight as I go so you know where I'm at. Starting off with last season, they were 8-9. They started off 5-1, were 8-3, and then injuries finally caught up to them. They had an injury-riddled season and concluded with Lamar being injured. They ended up losing 5 straight to end the season, 8-9, missing the playoffs. As far as coaching goes, they got rid of Wink Martindale and brought in Mac McDonald, who was the linebacker coach at Michigan, and then he ended up being the D coordinator there. We will finally maybe see fewer blitzes in Baltimore for a change. First time we've seen that in quite some time. So we'll get straight into their additions. So we'll start with the draft. So with the draft, get this situated, sorry, apologies. So with the draft, they took Kyle Hamilton, that they don't even have starting, which we do expect him to start, the safety out of Notre Dame. He fell all the way to 14 to them, which was unexpected. Some of the key things with him is that he can play in space and can fit the run from depth. He's fun all over the field. He's perfect for this defense that just likes to put players at all different spaces and all different places on the field, and he can lurk in the box and in the slot. So it's going to be intriguing to see what Mike McDonald can do with him this season. Then with their 25th pick, which they traded Hollywood Brown away for to get this pick, they ended up with Tyler Lindenbaum. There's a lot of questions being that he ran a different system whenever he was in college, but now he's going to be the starting center for the Ravens. He's athletic, has a high IQ. He gives McCarry the chance to move around, be a little bit more depth and move around on that O-line. His ability to get to the next level on run blocks bodes well for Lamar in this run game, especially on those outside runs. I feel like we're going to see Lamar getting down the field even more than what he's done in the past. You pair him with his mobility for the screen game as well. It just seems like a great fit for this system and what they're trying to do by moving on from their wide receivers and getting back more to that 2019 Ravens offense. Their 45th pick, they took a chance right here on David Ojabo, the linebacker who played under McDonald last year at Michigan. He tore his Achilles at his pro day. He's great value for a team that doesn't absolutely need him right now. They can get him a year to recover and be ready for next year and be outstanding help for 2023. Then in the third round, they got what everyone's saying is a Ravens pick. They got Travis Jones at 76. He's the D tackle out of UConn. He's a picture-perfect fit for this hybrid front scheme, and he's probably, I could see him being the eventual final piece for a devastating front four in years to come. Pairing him with Odafe and Ojabo, you just add all this together with this youth, he could be that final piece for sure. Then in the fourth round, they get the monster offensive lineman. He adds depth to that right side, so a key addition there. And then, let's see, I don't want to mess it up, but then they took Jalen Armour-Davis, the cornerback, got him late in the fourth round at 119. People had him going much higher than this, so another steal for the Ravens per norm with their draft day antics, I guess you would say. But it's always great for the Ravens. I would think the backup plan for him is to be the plan for him this year is to be the backup to Marcus Peters, likely a special team player this year, and he needs to improve as a playmaker, but going into the future he can learn and possibly be a starter as soon as next year. Then they took this tight end first at 128 in the fourth round, but then I think they got this one second, who is maybe the better tight end of the two. They got him at 139. He's a mismatch weapon. He was top 100 on some boards, and they got him at 139. He can play in the slot or as the H-back, and he has a 95.1 PFF career grade, highest by any tight end ever since they've been keeping track of these stats, the PFF. They then took a punter, stout, another cornerback and a running back with the rest of their picks. So then as far as free agency, their additions of people who they brought in, they brought back Michael Pierce, got him back up front. One big key signing that I think is very underrated is Marcus Williams. If you follow Madden, they have him ranked as the 16th best safety in the league, which is absurd to me. He was much better than that, especially in New Orleans. And I feel like he's going to come in and pair him with this trio that I think could be on the field at the same time with Chuck Clark, Kyle Hamilton, and Marcus Williams all at once. And there's no telling what Mike McDonald can do with those three. They also brought in Morgan Moses, who was going to start at right tackle for him. You know, this is great because the offensive line had issues as well last year. And then they also brought back Justin Houston, for depth, I would say at this point. And then the other key thing, addition-wise to me, is that everybody's back from injury. Everybody's recovered. They have Gus and Dobbins on the PUP list, but I don't expect them to be on there for long. They can come off at any time. So then we get into their losses. Had a few losses, but nothing I think that's going to really rock the boat in my opinion. So as we know, they traded Hollywood Brown to Arizona. They got equivalent draft value for him after 3 years of service, which is great. And to me, losing him is probably not that big, especially if you look at every advanced statistic. It shows that he's not a great player. He's not first round talent, and he's worth moving on from to add this center in instead. Also lost Sammy Watkins, who did nothing. Tavon Young, cornerback, who contributed. Anthony Aver, another cornerback that they lost. Deshaun Elliott. They replaced him with Kyle Hamilton. And then they also lost Bradley Bozeman, but they bring in Linderbaum. So, no real loss there. So now we'll look at their strengths. Like I mentioned earlier, having a healthy team again is a key strength for this team. They had the most adjusted games lost due to injury in the last 20 years. So unheard of injury bug within the NFL, just unfortunate luck. And to finish this season still at 500 is unheard of. Another main strength that we all know of is this run game. J.K. Dobbins coming back after being healthy. Gus Edwards. They added Mike Davis, who was a starter to begin the season in Atlanta last year. You pair that with Lamar Jackson, the best running quarterback in the league, very underrated as a passer, as we all know. He still gets hate for no reason. And then they got Patrick Ricard as their fullback. Good luck to opposing defenses trying to stop this run game. Another strength, they have a franchise quarterback that's settled. He's going to get paid sometime soon. I feel like he's going to get paid wherever they pay him is worth it, in my opinion. They have a proven head coach in John Harbaugh. No questions there with play calling or anything of that matter. And then the secondary is another key strength to me. Getting Humphrey back, signing Marcus Williams, Chuck Clark paired with Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Peters, and then they signed Kyle Fuller, who is underrated. For him to come in and be the third cornerback on this group, it's amazing for them. They're deep and flexible. Like I said with Marcus Williams earlier, he had a 91.7 PFF grade over the last 5 seasons. That's amazing if you know anything about the PFF grades. He is so underrated. So then their weaknesses. And their weaknesses, I don't know if some of them are even true weaknesses, to be honest with you. The first one is the wide receiver group. This group is thin with Rashad Bateman, Duvernay, and Prochet as their 3 starters. But how many times are we going to see a 3 wide receiver set on the field? Not really sure. It's thin, and their second-year player is their leader in Bateman. He had 1.3 yards per route run last year, which was 83rd out of 128 ranking wide receivers. So, you could see the negative there, but they're banking on him being the future. I'm looking for them to go back to that 2019 type season where Lamar was MVP and didn't really need wide receivers. They had Hollywood, but it wasn't a wide receiver scheme. They weren't. That was not the focal point of that offense then. I expect to see a ton of heavy personnel with this group that we have now. So I don't know if the wide receiver group is truly a weakness. Last year the O-line, but it was ravaged with injuries and issues altogether, and we hope for that not to be the problem this year. So we got Ronnie Stanley, who's going to be back. Linderbaum is drafted. Morgan Moses is a solid right tackle. This unit altogether has to be improved compared to what they were last year. So last year, Baltimore ran 8 empty sets per game on average. The NFL average was 1.5, and they were pressured on basically 4 out of every 8. So 50% of the time, Lamar was being pressured. That's why you saw him running for his life the majority of the season. And then one key issue that I think could show up this season is the lack of pressure up front. They do have Adafe Owe, who is going to be, I feel like he's going to take another step forward this year. But, I mean, there's not big names on this front four. And then Patrick Queen has not been great. I mean, maybe we can get some improvement out of Bowser. But thankfully, the secondary is so amazing that if this unit can be average, as talking about the front four, then this entire defense can be amazing. Outlook on both sides of the ball. I mean, we kind of hit a lot of the high points with this. I expect this team to have a lot of heavy personnel on the offense. Rashad Bateman to get a lot more run, to improve a lot this year, especially being a wide receiver one. I mean, this offensive line has just looked so much better to me going into the season compared to where we were last year. And then to have at least two starting caliber running backs. Mike Davis was considered a starter last year, and then they just signed Corey Clement. You know, I mean, this running back group is going to be deep for sure. The defense, like we discussed, the back end of it is great. Linebackers, we still need improvement. This front seven needs improvement, but I mean, with this secondary, hopefully Mike McDonald can get something great out of them. So now we'll go to their projected wins for the season. So let me bring up their schedule real quick and we'll run through each week. Okay, let's see. So first off, Vegas has them at 9.5 wins, which is, I mean, it's technically second in the division because Browns don't really have a over-under yet with the Deshaun Watson issue. But let's go week by week. They play the Jets in week 1. I don't expect that to be much of a competition. Ravens come out firing on all cylinders. Play the Dolphins in week 2. The Ravens are going to remember what happened on that Thursday night game when the Dolphins just continuously got pressure on Lamar, made him run for his life over and over. And I feel like they're going to remember that, and it's going to come out, and they're going to show who they are. And this 9.5 wins projection by Vegas is going to be far off. So 2-0. Play the Patriots in week 3. It's in New England. I don't care that it's Bill Belichick. Mac Jones doesn't even have a true offensive coordinator. He doesn't have wide receivers or targets to help him grow as a second-year quarterback. So with all that said, I feel like they're going to be 3-0. Unfortunately, they meet the Bills in week 4. Until the Bills are knocked off their pedestal, I know they didn't get to the Super Bowl last year, but they're the heavy favorites to get to the Super Bowl this year. Can't go crazy with the Ravens. So go 3-1 here. I mean, the Bills, their roster is the most complete roster in the NFL for sure. They then play the Bengals on Sunday Night Football at home. The Bengals, they got on a roll last year. I heard today that they had the fewest for their opponents. The opponents had the fewest games of injury. Basically, what I'm saying is they played the most injured teams over the last like 12 years or something like that. So their luck fell straight for them. They had no injuries on their side, and they just got hot at the end of the season. I mean, football is a lot about luck, and I feel like they're going to regress a little bit. I mean, they were 10-7. It wasn't like they were running away with the AFC. Ravens going to come in with something to prove, win this game for sure. Play the Giants in week 6. Brian Daboll's in New York. Daniel Jones, still not a top-tier quarterback. I don't think he can score with this team, regardless of what the Ravens defense does. So another win. Right now we're sitting 5-1. I know I'm a homer, but I'm trying to speak truthfully about how I feel with these games. Play the Browns at home in week 7. Deshaun Watson's very likely to not be back at this point. If he's not back, I don't think there's no way that the Ravens lose this game, or should lose this game, I should say. So now we're 6-1, going to the Bucs at the Bucs on Thursday Night Football. The Bucs, I mean, they just seem to be getting better, and until Tom Brady can prove that Father Time has caught up to him, I cannot write him off. I can't give the Ravens a win every week as well. They also signed Julio Jones today as well. And then they follow that up by going Monday Night Football in the Superdome. not ideal. I mean, let's not get crazy and give them all these wins. So they have 2 losses before they go into the bye. But going into the bye, they'll be 6-3. And as a Ravens fan, I'll gladly take 6-3 through 9 weeks or 10 weeks, I should say. Then things get better again. They play the Panthers. Panthers, we don't have to discuss them. I mean, Baker's not going to carry them too many wins. The Jags as well. The hype train is on with them. But Trevor Lawrence, until he can prove he can do something with these mediocre skill players that he has, they still have a lot of holes on defense. And Lamar is going to carve them up with Mark Andrews and this run game, no doubt. Another win. So now we're 8-3 going into week 13. Play the Broncos. The Broncos, I'm not too worried about them. I think Russell Wilson regresses to an extent. Maybe he's a top 15 quarterback, but until they can prove that they can do something, he's with a whole new team, and until that happens, I'm giving the Ravens a win. They're a unit that's been together and know what they want and what to do. Play the Steelers in week 14. With this one, I think the Steelers, this would be one of the years that the Ravens don't actually split with them and they get the sweep. We always know it's a hard opponent to play against, and this is always a tough game. It's usually 13-10. Good luck to Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky scoring 10 points a game. Follow that up with the Browns. Deshaun may be back at this point. I'm going to give him the loss here. Can't go too crazy. So at this point, we are 10-4 going into week 16. Play the Falcons. Falcons going to be the worst team in the NFL. Their defense is god-awful. It is the worst in the NFL. Play the Steelers again. I mentioned I think they're going to sweep them this year. And then they follow the end of the season with the Bengals. At this point, they're 12-4. They could be playing for the division. The Bengals could be playing for their playoff chances, especially in this amazing AFC. And I think they will eventually split with the Bengals this season. So with that said, I have them going 12-5, which is well above the Vegas prediction of 9.5 wins. Try not to be too much of a homer with these predictions, but yes, so 12-5 for them this year. So then, with each video, I go through and say who I think can be a top 5 or top 10 player at their position. And this team is loaded with them. I mean, top 5 candidates: Lamar, Mark Andrews, Justin Tucker, and Marlon Humphrey. I mean, I think Marlon Humphrey could take the next step, especially I think a lot of people wrote him off last year due to the injuries and the injuries that surrounded him. But having this secondary back to the caliber that it was, I think he could take that step and be a top 5 cornerback this year. Top 10, I say Marcus Peters potentially. He could come back. He's always been an interception machine. You think about all the big plays, the pick sixes that he's had over the last few years. Ronnie Stanley could be a top 10 player, and Marcus Williams could be another top 10 safety. I mean, he's very underrated, as we've already stated earlier in the video. So now we look at the MVP candidates and most improved player on this team. MVP, obviously Lamar. If he takes them to a division title, and they're a top 2 seed in the AFC, which is stacked to say the least, he's definitely going to be in that MVP conversation. Most improved player, I think it has to be Rashad Bateman. If this team's going to be great on offense, like I expect him to be, I think it's got to be Rashad Bateman. He's poised for a breakout season to become a clear wide receiver 1 with no competition, and to become a top 20 or 25 wide receiver in the league. Will he have the most targets? Maybe, but I think it still may be Mark Andrews. But Rashad Bateman can definitely push for that. Something that people don't think about last year is the fact that he and Lamar played only 6 games together. So, they haven't had time to grow for sure. So, for the Ravens organization to send Hollywood Brown off, they have to have strong faith in Rashad Bateman. So, best and worst outcomes for this team. I feel like I kind of laid out the best outcome of what I think is going to happen. If they go 12-5, I will be ecstatic. But the only thing that's questionable for this team is this front 4 and the linebacker group. If they can be average, then this team could easily be a number 1 seed in the AFC. Worst outcome is that those mentioned players are horrible. We don't get any production out of our wide receivers. An injury bug comes back again, which I Purdy will not be anywhere near as bad as it was last year. And we finished the season 9-8, 10-7, pushing to try to get in the playoffs, maybe on the outside looking in. And the Lamar slander continues. All right, so it's the best and worst. Okay, drop-off candidates. I mean, I don't know who could drop off. This is the first video that I haven't had a drop-off candidate. But I don't know who could drop off based on the fact that they had so many injuries last year that so many people are coming back. So it's hard to pick a drop-off candidate when so many people missed time last year. So then to end the video, the most intriguing thing to me and or the X factor is Patrick Queen. I mean, I think he's the X factor to me. He didn't grade well as far as PFF goes over the first 2 seasons. He has shown the ability to change games, but that's basically with his range when things are clicking, but he just hasn't been consistent. Last year he had 4 games where he had an 80 plus PFF grade, but he just has to be more consistent to anchor his team along with the pass rush. So with that said, that concludes the Ravens preview for the season. Have them doing great things. I hope I'm not wrong, especially as a Ravens fan. But until the next video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Catch you on the next one.